Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be soft-spoken ASMR, and today I'm going to be reading you a little bit of Midnight Sun. I am a huge Twilight fan. I always have been. I was like one of those people in high school that was just overly obsessed with Twilight, and I was like, I want to be a vampire. I was so infatuated with this series that when Midnight Sun came out, it was like, I have to be one of the first people to get it, and then I couldn't find it anywhere, and it was such a nightmare. But my husband ended up finding it and got it for me. My work's been a little busy, so I haven't had a chance to sit down and read it, which is unfortunate, but I'm gonna read a little bit to you guys, which will also be good for me so I can start it for myself. Basically, this is what it looks like. You know, Stephanie Meyer with her fruit pictures. If you didn't know, Twilight's picture is an apple. So she wanted to also do a fruit picture on the front of Midnight Sun, since Midnight Sun is essentially the first book just from Edward's perspective, if you didn't know that. So yeah, this is what it looks like, the dust jacket. It's so pretty, and it's so big. I actually compared this one to the Twilight book, and it's way thicker, so I'm gonna take off the dust jacket just because it does get in the way. Okay, oops. But yeah, there is all the books on the Twilight Saga. Yeah, there's also a book that I haven't read yet called The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner. I guess I'll try that one too. If you've read that one, please let me know in the comments how it was, because like I said, I'm obsessed with Twilight. So okay, let me get there. It's upside down, that would be helpful. Okay, so the dedication page reads, "This book is dedicated to all the readers who have been such a happy part of my life for the last 15 years. 15 years? Oh my god. When we first met, many of you were young teenagers with bright, beautiful eyes full of dreams for the future. I hope that in the years that have passed, you have all found your dreams and the reality of them was even better than you'd hope." Why does that make me want to cry? Oh my god. 15 years? How old was I? I was 15 when I started reading Twilight, and I'm gonna be 27 in a few months, so oh my god. Wow, that just kind of got to me, guys. Wow. Okay. Anyways, moving on. Okay, so the first chapter is called First Sight. This was the time of day when I most wished I were able to sleep. High school. Or was purgatory the right word? If there were any way to atone for my sins, this ought to count toward the tally in some measure. The tedium was not something I grew used to. Every day seemed more impossibly monotonous than the last. Perhaps this could even be considered my form of sleep, if sleep was defined as the inert state between active periods. I stared at the cracks running through the plaster in the far corner of the cafeteria, imagining patterns into them that were not there. It was one of my ways to tune out the voices that jabbed like gush of a river inside of my head. Several hundred of these voices I ignored out of boredom. When it came to the human mind, I'd heard it all before and then some. Today, all thoughts were consumed with the trivial drama of a new addition to the small student body. It took so little to work them up. I'd seen the new face repeated in thought after thought from every angle, just an ordinary human girl. The excitement over her arrival was tremendously predictable. It was the same reaction as one would get from flashing a shiny object at a group of toddlers. Edward Cullen, you savage, you. Half the sheep-like males were already imagining themselves infatuated with her just because she was something new to look at. I tried harder to tune them out. Okay, so, I mean, Edward because he went to so many different schools and he was way older than he was supposed to be, has like a lot of knowledge. And I loved that about Edward. Like, he just didn't seem like another like 17-year-old boy, you know? And being a person who went to a very like small, close high school, like anytime anybody knew or anytime like anything happened, everyone was all over it. So I understand his frustration. Only four voices did I block out of courtesy rather than distance: my family, my 2 brothers and 2 sisters, who were so used to the lack of privacy in my presence that they were worried about it. I gave them what I could. I tried not to listen if I could help it. Try as I may, still, I knew. Rosalie was thinking, as usual, about herself. Her mind was a stagnant pool of few surprises. She had caught sight of her profile in the reflection of someone's glasses, and she was mulling over her own perfection. No one else's hair was close to a true gold. No one else's shape was quite so perfectly an hourglass. No one else's face was such flawless, symmetrical oval. She didn't compare herself to the humans here. That juxtaposition would have been laughable, absurd. She thought of others like us, none of them her equal. To be honest, out of all the Cullen siblings, Rosalie was my least favorite. And I grew more attached to Rosalie probably in Breaking Dawn. I don't know. Like, there was a section in Eclipse where like I felt like I could get close to her character, but Breaking Dawn, when Edward and Bella had Renesmee, when I started to like understand Rosalie more. Emmett's usual carefree expression was crumpled with frustration. Even now, he ran one enormous hand through his ebony curls, twisting his hair into a fist, still fuming over the wrestling match he lost to Jasper during the night. It would take all of his limited patience to make it to the end of the school day to orchestrate a rematch. Hearing Emmett's thoughts never felt intrusive because he'd never thought one thing that he could say out loud or put into action. Perhaps I only felt guilty reading others' minds because I knew there were many things inside that they wouldn't want me to know. If Rosalie's mind was a stagnant pool, then Emmett's was a lake with no shadows, glass clear. And Jasper was suffering. I suppressed a sigh. Edward, Alice called my name in her head and had my attention at once. It was just the same as having my name called out loud. I was glad my given him had fallen out of style in the last few decades. It had only been annoying in the past. Anytime anyone thought of any Edward, my head would automatically turn. My head didn't turn now. Alice and I were good at keeping these private conversations. It was rare that anyone caught us. I kept my eyes on the lines in the poster. How was he holding up? She asked me. I frowned, just a small change of set in my mouth, nothing that would tip off the others. I could easily be frowning out of boredom. Jasper had still been looking for too long. He wasn't performing human tricks the way we all must, constantly in motion so as not to stand out. Like Emmett pulling his hair, Rosalie crossing her legs first one way and then the next, Alice tapping her toes against the linoleum, or me moving my head to stare at different patterns on the wall. Jasper looked paralyzed. His lean form wouldn't form straight. Even his hair seemed not to react to the air weaving from the vents. Jasper, I feel, always looks paralyzed. Poor guy. Alice's mental tone was alarmed now, and I saw in her mind that she was watching Jasper in her peripheral vision. Is there any danger? ? She searched ahead into the immediate future, skimming through visions of monotony from the source behind my frown. Even as she did so, she remembered to tuck one tiny fist under her sharp chin and blink regularly. She brushed a tuft off her short, jagged black hair out of her eyes. I turned my head slowly to the left, as if looking at the bricks of the wall side, and then turned to the right, back to the tracks in the ceiling. The others would assume I was playing human. Only Alice knew I was shaking my head. She relaxed. Let me know if it gets too bad. I moved only my eyes up to the ceiling above and back down. Thanks for doing this. I was glad I couldn't answer her aloud. What would I say? My pleasure? It was hardly that. I didn't enjoy tuning into Jasper's struggles. Was it necessary to experiment this way? Wouldn't the safer path just to be admit that he might never be able to handle his thirst as well as the rest of us could and not push his limits? Why flirt with disaster? It had been 2 weeks since our last hunting trip. This was not an immensely difficult span for the rest of us. A little uncomfortable occasionally if a human walked close, if the wind blew the wrong way, but if humans rarely walked too close, their instincts told them their conscious minds would never understand. We were a danger that must be avoided. Jasper was very dangerous right now. It did not happen often, but every now and then I would be struck by the obliviousness of humans around us. We were also accustomed to it. We always expected it, but occasionally it seemed more glaring than usual. None of them noticed here, lounging at the battered cafeteria table through an ambush of tigers sprawled in our places would be less lethal than we were. All I saw was 5 odd-looking people close enough to human to pass, and it was hard imagining surviving with a sense of incredibly dull people. Reading this is just like bringing me back, like to the first time I read Twilight. Like, I am so happy. At that moment, a small girl paused at the end of the closest table to ours, stopping talking to a friend. She tossed her short hair, sandy hair, going through her fingers through it. The heaters blew her scent in our direction. I was used to the way the scent made me feel, a dry ache in my throat, the yellow urine from my stomach automatically tightening in my muscles, the excess flow of venom in my mouth. This was quite normal. Usually it's easy to ignore. It was harder just now, with the reactions stronger, doubled, and I monitored Jasper. Jasper was letting his imagination get away from him. He was picturing himself getting up from his seat next to Alice and going to stand beside the little girl, and letting his lips touch the arc of her throat, imagining how hot flow of her pulse beneath his weak barrier of her skin would feel under his mouth. I kicked his chair. He met my gaze, his black eyes resentful for a second, and then looked down. I could hear shame and rebellion war in his head. Sorry, Jasper muttered. I shrugged. You weren't going to do it anyways, Alice murmured to him, soothing his mortification. I could see that. I fought back the frown that would give her lie away. We had to stick together, Alice and I. It wasn't easy being the freaks among those who were already freaks. We protected each other's secrets. It helps a little if you think of them as people, Alice suggested, her high musical voice racing too fast for human ears to understand, if any had been close enough to hear her. Her name is Whitney. She has a baby sister she adores. Her mother invited Esme to the garden party. Do you remember? I know who she is, Jasper said cruelly. He turned away to stare out one of the small windows that were spaced out just under the eaves around the living room. His tone ended the conversation. He would have to hunt again tonight. It was ridiculous to take all risks like this. Trying to test his strength to build endurance, Jasper should just accept his limitations and the work within them. Alice sighed silently, stood, taking her tray of food, her prop, as it were, and her leaving him alone. She knew when he'd had enough of her encouragement. Though Rosalie and Emmett were more flagrant about the relationship, it was Alice and Jasper who knew each other's every need as well as their own, as if they could read minds too, but only each other's. Edward. Reflex reaction. I turned to the sound of my name being called, though it wasn't being called. It was just a thought. My eyes locked for half a second with a pair of large chocolate brown human eyes set in a pale heart-shaped face. I knew the face, though I'd never seen it myself before this moment. It had foremost in every human today. The new student, Isabella Swan, daughter of town's chief police, brought to live here by some new custody situation. Bella, she corrected everyone who used to call her by her full name. I looked away, bored. It took me a second to realize that she had not been one to think of my name. Of course, she's already crushing on the colons, I heard the first thought continue. Now I recognize the voice. Jessica Stanley. It had been a while since she'd bothered me with her internal chatter. What a relief had been when she'd gotten over her misplaced fixation. It used to be nearly impossible to escape her constant, ridiculous daydreams. I'd wished at the time I could explain to her exactly what would happen if my lips and the teeth behind them had gone anywhere near her, that it would have silenced those annoying fantasies. The thought of her reaction almost made me smile. fat lot of good that would do to her, Jessica went on. She really not even pretty. I don't know why Eric is staring so much, ... or Mike. So Jessica was like a little jealous, and like I knew she was jealous, but like now that Edward is like saying the thoughts out loud of like her like not wanting Eric or Mike to stare at her was like one thing. But I knew that Jessica had a crush on Edward because like if you've seen in the movies, when Kirsten Stewart is talking to Anna Kendrick, who plays Jessica, she's like, "That's Edward Cullen," but apparently nobody here is good enough for him. That's because, and he smirked. That's because she had, like, I guess, originally hit on him, and he turned her down. Fun Twilight fact. She flinched mentally on the latter name, her new obsession. The generically popular Mike Newton was completely oblivious to her. Apparently he was not oblivious to the new girl. Another child reaching for the shiny object. This put a mean to edge Jessica's thoughts, though she was outwardly cordial to the newcomer as she explained to her the commonly held knowledge about my family. The new student must have asked about us. Everyone's looking at me today too, Jessica thought smugly. Isn't it lucky Bella has 2 classes with me? I bet Mike will want to ask me what she's... I tried to block the inane character in my head before the petty and the trivial could drive me mad. Jessica Stanley is giving the new Swan girl all the dirty laundry on the Cullen clan, I murmured to admit in a distraction. He chuckled under his breath. I hope she's making it good, he thought. Rather unimaginative, actually. Just the barest hint of scandal, not an ounce of horror. I'm a little disappointed. And the new girl? Is she disappointed in the gossip as well? I listened to hear what the new girl, Bella, thought of Jessica's story. What did she see when she looked at the strange chalky-skinned face family that was universally avoided? It was my responsibility to know her reaction. I acted as an outlook, for the lack of better word, to my family. To protect us, if anyone ever grew suspicious, I could give us an early warning and easily retreat. It happened occasionally. Some human with an active imagination would see us in the characters of a book or a movie. Usually they got it wrong, but it was better to move on somewhere new than risk the scrutiny. Rarely, extremely rarely, someone would guess it right. We didn't give them a chance to test their hypothesis. We simply disappeared to become no more than a frightening memory. This hadn't happened for decades. I heard nothing, though I listened close beside where Jessica's frivolous international monologue continued to gush. It was as if there was no one sitting beside her. How peculiar. Had the girl moved? That didn't seem likely as Jessica was still babbling on at her. I looked up, feeling off balance, checking my extra hearing, but it was something I ever had to do. Again, my gaze locked into those wide brown eyes. She was sitting right where she had been before, looking at us, a natural thing to be doing. I suppose, as Jessica was still regaling her with the local gossip about the Cullens, thinking about us too would be natural. So this is where Edward realizes that he can't hear Bella's thoughts, which I guess would be extremely frustrating if you were Edward Cullen, right? And I was going to read the entire first chapter to you guys, but I got to 7 pages and the video is already 20 minutes, so I feel like 22 pages would be a very long time to read, so I'll just wrap it up with this. Midnight Sun, basically following Edward's perspectives, is probably the most genius thing that Stephenie Meyer could have ever done, because those who are obsessed with Twilight, like myself, read this online when we were younger. There was like a few chapters of it online when we were younger, and then the what's the word I'm looking for, the outrage of people when she didn't finish it was like crazy. Like I remember I was a part of a few Twilight fan clubs, and like everyone was like, is she not gonna finish it? Like that's annoying, because none of us wanted Twilight to end. So if 2020 gave us anything great, it was the fact that Stephenie Meyer came out with Midnight Sun. So hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. I will be definitely reading more of it now, because now that I've started it, my obsession has now came back to life. So if you guys liked this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.